Hello, everyone, and welcome to Codurance Meetups. My name is Javier Chacana, and I'll be acting as your host today for our talk presented by Sebastian Kulinski, Craftsman at Codurance, who, by the way, is not Edward Snowden. So just be aware of that. Sebastian will be talking and giving us a tour through working with legacy code, specifically by applying the Golden Master technique. Quick reminder that this session is being recorded right now, and you can find this and all of our previous sessions in our YouTube channel. Take a look and remember that Codurance was born from the community and believes in giving back to the community. So if you feel like you have a topic you may want to share with us, feel free to reach us and we can organize it for you. Right now, without further ado, I leave you with Sebastian. The stage is yours.
Thanks a lot. So I'll start from sharing my desktop. First of all, what is legacy code and why it's important to know how to work with it. In the last few decades, the IT industry was developing really fast, and there was a lot of enterprise, a lot of companies. Amount of code that was written till now is extremely huge. It's not always good code. Not all the best practices are still evolving. We're still looking for the proper techniques to work. There's still people who are writing sometimes enterprise code that sit there for years, and sometimes we need to upgrade it. And basically, the biggest issue is that because of all this code that is legacy lying behind on the servers, lying in the code base, why then this is all BRs to work with? So we need to, I think it's important to know how to work with it, how to secure yourself and not break something that is production. What is the main problem of working with legacy code? I think we can divide it into sections. It doesn't work when you try to refactor it, and the question is why it doesn't work. The other problem is if you don't want to refactor it and try to understand it, it works, and the question is why it works. And in first case, it's usually not tested code or poorly tested that doesn't give you proper feedback and safety net to your work, what you can do around it and how to improve it. The other problem, how it works, is sometimes fun to understand. Maybe this is defensive mechanism from old days when people were coding in the manner that prevents them from being fired from their job. If you write enough complicated code, it's hard to get rid of you. That's also part of legacy system that you can find somehow. Also, more and more vital parts of the systems that you need to work with are older systems that weren't touched for a really long time because everyone are scared to touch them. It's not safe to poking around with the heart of the system that's responsible for most of the stuff, and no one dares to do it because no one wants to break the company for a few hours or maybe days if you cannot easily revert back. And basically, the Michael Federer's definition for legacy code that I agree with is legacy code is every code that is not tested, and my extension is all tested poorly. And what is Golden Master? Those are short key points for you to keep in mind. You can find more information about it. I think I have ugly. Yeah, I will give it. Sorry. Those are short key points for you from Sandro Mancuso blog post. You can find it on our Codurance website. Basically, for all who are familiar with React snapshot testing to stop regression from rendering website, it's similar concept. We're taking snapshot of the output from the part of the system we want to test. We're storing it as a reference point for testing. And when we're doing refactor after each small step, we're running system again, capturing the new output and comparing it to original one. It's sometimes more or less complicated depending what type of system you're working on, with what part. In our case, we'll be working with Gilded Rose Kata today, where all the cases and all the restrictions for the working program are defined, so it's easier to present this. If you're looking for maybe more challenging kata, I can recommend you a trivia game when you actually should generate several thousand outputs as original to compare. But in a nutshell, it's just capture output, compare to store it as your reference point, and compare it with the new one. Check if everything is the same, that you actually didn't change the behavior of the system at any point. And how does it help you in Refactor? Because, yeah, great to know, but what this gives you? You're sure that you didn't change behavior. If you want to refactor code that is unreadable, it's not tested, hard to maintain, you don't want to change its behavior. You don't want to extend it. This technique, it's not for changing, for extending your code base. It's not for adding new features. It's for making it more readable, more robust, easier to maintain for you for the future, breaking maybe some dependencies. And you want to maintain the exact same behavior that you have right now. And this gives you safety net for safe refactoring, because with one quick test, generating output and comparing with the original one, you know that you didn't break the code. You know it's working as it was. For the cases, I shared in the chat previously the link to Codurance website with this kata. In a nutshell, it's kata based in the old World of Warcraft type. It's about selling item and calculate the quality and selling value. You usually need to read the restrictions several times for each item to wrap your head around it, especially that code doesn't make it easier for you. You will see this in a moment. I just pointed here to as a reference. You will see code, and maybe, let me be clear, main point is not about what are the restrictions exactly, but how to use Golden Master in these specific cases when they are defined to easily refactor and make the code, for example, ready to extract or start to cover it with more complicated programming patterns from Chris Mastery type of code. For me, Chris Mastery is like nested if statement files inside. How to remove this and prepare the code for maybe more advanced architectures or techniques that you can use. So let's go. I will start the presentation properly now with prepared kata. Here again have the link where you can find gilded rows, and
I just sent the repository again on the chat for those who arrived later.
Thanks. And later on, you can also find tips and tricks about improving object-oriented design by removing your old habit in our channel by Codurance. The last, I think it was led by Jose Wenzel. And I recommend this one to check out as a next step after, let's say, from this point of kata. I want to stop it at some specific point, and you can start to improve your design, in this case, by the tricks that are shown by Jose on our channel. Okay. I'll open my IDE. And this is the starting point of exercise. We have this beautiful code that we need to refactor. I hope that we all agree that there's some work to do with it. One of the restrictions is that we have item class, and we're not allowed to touch it. We cannot modify during this progress. We only working on the gilded rows class to make it better. In the original exercise, we're supposed to add new functionality and add extra feature for it. But in this case, during this presentation, we won't be focusing on it. We will focus only on refactoring existing code, not extending it. What's provided already in the code base original is simple test setup to work with, and test fixture for Golden Master technique with items that are created, instantiation, how many days we count for degrading items, checking them, and then there's look for printing the output as you wanted. So this is the first part. The only changes I've done for text pictures was to extend the output, how many times we'll be upgrading each item in the program. And I've removed original part for conjured mana cake. This is the extension that we'll be skipping in this presentation completely. Those are two differences from the original code base that I've done for this. So first step, I'm not a big fan of working on production code directly when I'm refactoring. So I basically create new class, just duplicated the original one to work with. It's exactly the same as the previous one. And I've created the test case. I keep the original one, but create new test case for, yeah, I think this was some experiment. I mocked the main method that was printing and replace original application with my own class that I cloned. So
question, Sebastian, one question. This is for me. So what are you doing in this mock main? What is exactly the goal of this fixture?
Okay, we can. I think I can run it to show you in the console. Maybe this actually will be easier. Thanks. I got the run button. I got sun in the. Why it disappeared? So I got sun in my screen and not seeing very well. Something happened here. Why got broken kata? Okay, I might need some help from you, Javier.
Yeah. Sorry,
something broke.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought I had everything prepared, but suddenly I cannot run the.
Maybe you have an issue with the.
Probably.
With the what's going on? You can't build because you you should do maybe a Gradle build. I don't know if you have the Gradle option.
Yes, something broke for some reason. Sorry, really sorry for that. Don't know what happened.
You can re-import. You can re-import the project maybe.
Yeah, where is the Gradle? Sorry, I was working recently on something different. So let me just close this first. I will run the main method, the original one. So as you can see, this is the original output during the 10 days, how the items quality and selling value change. This is the original output of the program, how it's supposed to work. So for the test purposes, let's get back to log. For the test purposes in the second part, what I've done, I've cloned the original class. Just not to work with the production code directly to keep output. And in the test class, I mock the main method to have two outputs at the same time. So when I'm running the test, I should have both of them at the same. Yeah. For now, it's just printing one output after another. And I think in the next commit, I set it up already, exactly test case. Yeah. So why I mock it for first time, when I'm running the original program output, I'm capturing I'm capturing the output from the console as byte array output stream, and then I'm setting up exactly the same system for cloned class And I'm setting those that both outputs are equal. So this is basically setting up the golden master for the situation I have right now. And running this test, showing me that everything is proper. I got green, all good. If I change even one thing in the mock class, as example, the test should fail and show me that I refactored something wrong. Actually, in this case, I should be able to find somewhere in the output, yeah, to see the difference. So it's showing me exactly that the name of this item is completely different, the one in the original. And this is proving for me what I've done. I on purpose broke test to check if the setup that I've done is working correctly. If I revert this and run test again, I'm back to green. And I can start to work in Gilded Rows Refactor class to start cleaning up the whole process of taking care of how to refactor this code. And then basically all next steps, one by one, from this moment, setting up, you'll be able to see differences and extractions part that I've done. And after each of them, I was running this only one test to check if the output is still equal to each other, that the output of Refactor class is still exactly the same as the output of original program next to this mocker, because they are the same. And this gives me security that all the work I've done on the code, it's not breaking the original implementation. First was extracting increasing quality of the item. Then in the same place, I've extracted decreasing quality of the item. So as you can see, those are small refactor steps that I can do without worrying about breaking original behavior of the software. And this is all thanks to this one test, maybe not the best naming convention as BART, but this is the one simple test that is comparing constantly after each refactor that I've done, that the program is still working exactly as expected, that the final result, what is rendered from the program, didn't change. And this way, this gives me security and safety net to conduct all these refactoring steps to the final level that you will see in a moment. And basically, one by one, you can see that from the deepest branch of refactoring, you can cherry pick each element and extract it to proper function to make the code more readable, easier to maintain. For now, those are all of this are only small changes, each one of them. But step by step, working like this and having this security from the golden master technique, being sure that the behavior you didn't alter the behavior of the software. One by one, you can solve this issue with safety and security that is actually working.
Do you have to start? Do you have to start from some particular branch of that huge if-else structure?
I think it depends on you. The most recommended way usually is to start from the deepest branch of complicated conditional statement, because usually this is the single point that is easier to start to break through. But I think it depends. If you want to start from, for example, from breaking negation if statement, you can also start here without any issues. It's up to you.
All right.
Because here, if you know that software is still the same, it's up to you how you approach this technique for refactoring. It's just giving you safety. It doesn't tell you how to refactor, what to refactor. It's up to you, but it's giving you the security behind your back that you didn't alter the behavior of the software, so you can do it safely. And if you see that one small change that you've done break the original output, you can always roll back. There's no problem in it. For example, we can change something here. That if I change this condition as refactor, let's assume that I want to check this and I run my test, it should break. It should show me that this is, oh, good. That's good. Well, it's not characterization test. Am I on the proper branch? This is really...
I think I've seen this, that, and
because
I
I'm
would
running
say
the
that part,
fixture, not the test. That's why.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
And then
Running
you have the assertion.
Yeah, now it's working as it's supposed to, because it should break, and I was running the wrong file. Very sorry, not especially, not my day. So if I change this, the test should also, yeah, exactly, it's break. You can see that all the changes that we are doing, I get back to original point. And it's still telling me that the refactor I've done previously is proper. I recommend to do this exercise even several times with different techniques. And maybe I'll jump straight to the final point, because this will be the final code that I want to stop presentation. Let's go vertically and open original one. Here you can see that based on Golden Master technique, I could safely change this type of code that is hard to read with step-by-step to more robust code. It's still not perfect. There's, I would say that this is the start point when you can break dependencies, start to extract separate classes, start to move this functionality to different architecture, use different design patterns, finish this kata in this manner. But I think this is the limit that you can use Golden Master, because it gives you security during refactor. But if you want to move to other classes, you can start to use classic TDD to develop them and move functionality from this main class to the proper item one by one. And then you can build proper test suite in your project in legacy code that before was looking like the one on the right. And you have something on the left that is easier to maintain, easier to understand. And you can start proper refactor from this point with unit testing for each new class that you, for example, implement. From this part, it depends on you how you want to refactor this further. You can finish this exercise using proxy pattern, decorator pattern, command pattern. It's up to you. And for each of the functionality that you will implement to finish refactoring in the way you want, you can still support yourself with Golden Master technique that will tell you if the functionality wasn't broken, but also start to cover new classes and further refactor with unit testing. And at some point, when you are sure that the other unit tests that you already developed further for the new architecture, you can drop Golden Master test that you had to implement new features. Because with Golden Master, it will be impossible for you to add new features. And if at this stage, do you have any questions? Sorry for extremely chaotic presentation in this case, but the initial problem a bit kicked me out of the rhythm.
Well, guys, if you have any questions, I would say, for example, what we can do, if would it be possible to proceed with some other refactor from this point?
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you feel comfortable?
We can
doing
try
one?
to mob a little bit if you want. You can try to make some small mob session from the stage, and we can discuss different options. But to be honest, in presentation, I prefer to focus on usefulness on Golden Master technique rather than on kata itself.
All right. Guys, please, any questions?
Please help me.
Feel free. Yeah, if I understand correctly, the technique is the idea is that you said like you don't know exactly what your original class does, and you set like an output, and you expect that to be your guide from now on.
Yes, especially in the case of this kata, it's a bit easier because all the requirements for the code and rules that the program follow are specified in one point. There is no randomness in the input, and you know what to expect from it. That's why this kata is good as a starting point for training and trying out this technique, because you got specified rules. So you can also use this kata for characterization test.
What is characterization test?
With characterization test, when you get in legacy code, you can you're starting with test case one by one, and you exercise legacy code until you get 100% coverage, for example. So building one by one test cases against the original code, and this way you're using also test coverage, you're exercising every line of code to be sure that you covered, and then you start refactoring based on the test suite that you build by yourself for the legacy code. It's a bit slower technique, and it requires you to know all the rules.
Yeah, that's what I see. It's a lot more slower.
Yeah, because you need to understand what are exactly requirements and be sure about all the dependencies that might break during refactor to use characterization test. Golden Master is quite fast because before you start refactor, you not always need to know. It's not required for you to know all the code base, all the dependencies. Just capturing the behavior, the final behavior of the program that you will be working with, storing it as a reference point, and each refactor you do, you can check if the output changed or not. And then from the refactor point that you've done, if you break the Golden Master test, you can start to track back the dependencies for this particular reason, that this point that you touch. So you don't always have to understand the whole code at once, and you already can start refactor step by step. Not worrying about repeatability or spending hours and hours on analyzing the original legacy part of the system that you're working with. So it's just faster technique, but it doesn't require you to know all the rules. In this case, it's just easier to set up the whole process for you. Because if you got multiple, let's say here you got 5 different inputs that you can fit system with. But for example, if you got 1,000 different inputs, it might be more complicated to set up Golden Master. It might also take more time. But at the same moment, if you want to do characterization test, it will also take much more time to set up all test cases for different 1,000 roles.
Gustav has a question. He says, can we see a practical / real world example of this method in something like a web app instead of a kata?
Yeah, I strongly, this is my opinion, that if you take a look into snapshot testing in React, it's based on the same method, because snapshot with snapshot library for testing in React, you're taking snapshot of the HTML that was rendered by component. And then during tests, you basically regenerating this snapshot and comparing it to original one. So in this case, it's regression. So many React applications using exactly the same system.
So it's, under the hood it's applying the Golden Master.
Yeah,
that will
exactly.
be, and many applications. The one we are working with our client is, we have some snapshot testing out there, because we don't want to break the UI. I see it useful in that sense. Do you know any other like real world application of this?
What I can think about, if you get only part of the system that is legacy code and you refactor rest of it, and you don't know how to touch this center part, for example, and let's say it's you're giving it order from the database and it's processing it and spitting out for you array that you will be, I don't know, converting to JSON to the third-party application, third-party API as an output that you're sending. You can isolate this array and as original one, duplicate the class and test like this only part of the system, only one class that you want to refactor. You don't have to run the whole program as an output. You can just capture the return statement, the return value from the function or from the class if you need, and use the same technique. If you clone it, if you mock it and start refactor the mock, then you can launch both of them in control environment with controlled input, compare the return results from both function/class, depending which programming language you work, and refactor, and then just leave dependency at the end to start use new refactored class.
All right. Any other question? Thank you, Sebastian. Any other question, guys?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. Maybe you spoke about it, Sebastian. I'm not sure I remember, but could we say that, so when you spoke about the difference between characterization test and golden master, could we say that when we want to refactor a system that we don't know any of the requirements, we cannot use characterization test and we are kind of forced to use golden master?
Yeah, a bit, because if you don't know what the system is doing and what are the rules for it, how you can write the test if you got problem with understanding it. And you would not only spend the time on writing tests one by one for each test case that you can think about, and usually you won't cover edge cases, but at the same time you will spend much more time on trying to understand what the code is doing during writing the test.
Okay.
So this might be a good start point for more complicated system if you can isolate output, return values or output from the part that you want to refactor.
All right. And also about well, it's not a practical example, but there is a nice article on our Codurance website, which gives like a more standard example of the golden master approach with this kata. I don't know if you are interested in it. I could put the link in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll take a look.
I mean, for anyone who is interested to see an approach with like dealing with randomness of input for a program, I think it's a good one.
Yeah. The other kata that is more focused on golden master and more complicated to work with, it's a trivia game, and it got elements also of randomness that you need to sort out. It's a full program that's simulating the game, and a lot of the input, it's based on six dice with six parts, six surface, and for each turn it's using random function to generate input to the game. So it's a bit more complicated to use properly and generate the golden master technique in this case. So it's really good. It's more advanced exercise to work with, because you need to control the randomness of the software to work with it.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian.
We'll leave it. See you next time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.